Limitless Keith Lee has just debuted in AEW, and his debut was absolutely electrifying. Keith Lee showcased his charming natural charisma and his mind-blowing athleticism for a guy his size on his debut, and he proved exactly why he's going to be a huge asset in AEW. It's a mystery as to why WWE released a superstar who was bound for great things like Keith Lee. But to be honest, thank God he left WWE.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.
Vince McMahon is certainly going to regret letting Keith Lee go, because now that he's in AEW, he's going to shine brighter than ever before. Keith Lee started training to become a wrestler in 2005, and for almost 10 years he wrestled almost exclusively on the Texas independent circuit. But when Keith Lee got out of the Texas wrestling scene, that is when he really honed his style in the ring, and he made appearances across the country in Ring of Honor, Evolve, and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, as well as other independent promotions. In these promotions, Keith Lee cultivated his unique style of wrestling, as he's a very big man that moves like a cruiserweight. A man that's 6'2" and over 320 pounds should not be as athletic and high-flying as Keith Lee is. And with his athleticism as a big man, Keith Lee is a wrestler that is in the same ilk as Vader or Bam Bam Bigelow, and dare I say, he might even be better than them. Keith Lee being extremely impressive on the independents led him to get his big break and sign with WWE in 2018. And in WWE, Keith Lee made his name in wrestling. He made sure to make us all bask in his glory. Keith Lee arrived in NXT, and even though he had a very quiet year in 2018, in 2019 he had his breakout year in wrestling. In NXT, Keith Lee found his greatest rival, Dominik Dijakovic, known currently today as T-Bar. The matches that Keith Lee and Dijakovic had were absolutely mind-blowing. Dijakovic is 6'7" and 270 pounds, so seeing two absolute behemoths of human beings doing Spanish flies and backflips was absolutely insane to watch. Keith Lee and Dijakovic tore the house down every single time they stepped into the ring, and were constantly the best match on the show whenever they had a match together. It was just so insane to see two heavyweights move so effortlessly like cruiserweights in the ring. Dijakovic and Lee's matches highlighted what made NXT so special at that time. Out of their 6 televised matches, Keith Lee won 3 matches, Dijakovic won 1 match, and there were 2 draws. In NXT, it wasn't hard to see that Keith Lee was bound for the stars, and he was oozing charisma. This led him to make an appearance on the WWE main roster on SmackDown, and he also wrestled on Survivor Series 2019 on Team NXT against Team Raw and Team SmackDown in a 5-on-5-on-5 elimination match. This match was Keith Lee's very first time on a huge stage, and he really showcased why he's so special. Keith Lee even spirit bombed Roman Reigns' soul to another dimension.
Spear! Whoa! Keith Lee! Powerbomb!
Roman Reigns eventually eliminated Keith Lee, but he gave him a fist bump as a sign of respect, and this helped to put Keith Lee over. He won the NXT North American Championship from Roderick Strong, so he was there to stay in NXT for the foreseeable future. Keith Lee then got into a feud with the NXT champion at the time,
Adam Cole, baby!
1 week, Keith Lee bounced Adam Cole into another realm.
It was at this moment he knew he fucked up.
It's the NXT champion!
This all led to Lee versus Adam Cole for the NXT Championship, and since Lee was the North American Champion at that time, it was winner takes all at NXT's Great American Bash Night 2. Adam Cole and Keith Lee wrestled a really good match, with Keith Lee picking up the win and becoming the first ever wrestler to hold the North American and NXT Championships at the same time. While Keith Lee deserved this match between Adam Cole and him was booked too soon because NXT was trying to keep up with AEW by counter-programming AEW's Fyter Fest Night 2. So this hotshot booking kind of cheapened Keith Lee's win, but nonetheless, it was really cool to see Keith Lee holding both championships. Not too long after this, Keith Lee relinquished the North American Championship so he could just be the NXT champion, and he entered into a feud with Karrion Kross. 1 week, Keith Lee opened a contract for their match, and a fireball hit his face. Fireball. Their feud culminated at NXT's TakeOver 30. Unfortunately, Keith Lee lost this match and lost the NXT World Championship. But Keith Lee taking the L in this match was so that he could join the main roster, and at SummerSlam 2020, it was announced that Keith Lee would be getting drafted to Raw. Everybody knew that Lee was destined to do big things on the main roster, but as soon as he got there, the main roster curse was in full effect, as Vince McMahon already changed aspects about Keith Lee as he came out in baggy shorts and a vest. This was a far cry from the classic tight-wearing shirtless Keith Lee that we all loved and grown accustomed to. Apparently Vincent Kennedy McMahon was not a fan of Keith Lee's body, so he told him to cover it up. They also changed Keith Lee's banger of an entrance song to a generic WWE 2K entrance song. All of this was so disappointing and upsetting to see because Keith Lee was one guy that WWE had that they didn't have to tweak for him to become a major star because he was a star already. Keith Lee had some bright moments where he flashed his potential on the main roster, like winning over Randy Orton at the Payback pay-per-view and challenging for the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre, of which he lost this match. But on the whole, it felt like Keith Lee had turned into just another big man on the WWE main roster. To make things worse, Vincent Kennedy McMahon even sent Keith Lee back to the Performance Center just so that he could train and learn more how to wrestle as a big man, which once again should not have happened. To make things even worse, Keith Lee then unfortunately contracted COVID-19 in January of 2021. The COVID caused his heart to become inflamed, and this legitimately could have killed Keith Lee. Luckily, after 5 months, Keith Lee's heart went back to normal and he was cleared to wrestle. When he returned, he faced Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship, but he unfortunately lost. WWE then gave Keith Lee a gimmick change and a name change, and now he was known as Bearcat Lee. This was an homage to Bearcat Wright, who was one of the first big African American babyfaces in wrestling in the 20th century. While the sentiment of this was noble, this was just not Keith Lee. Keith Lee didn't have to change anything about himself to get himself over. Keith Lee was the best version of himself as Keith Lee, not Bearcat Lee or anyone else, and Vincent Kennedy McMahon and WWE seemed not to understand this. WWE changing Keith Lee in all these different ways did not do Keith any favors, as he felt like a shell of his former self. And on November 4, 2021, Keith Lee was released from WWE. This left the whole wrestling world shocked because WWE somehow managed to butcher Keith Lee's potential. Keith Lee could have main evented many WWE pay-per-views and been a big time player in the company, but Vince McMahon failed to capitalize on his all-around brilliance. Honestly, it was just really sad to see Keith Lee's time in WWE coming to an end in the way that it did. WWE also released Keith Lee's longtime girlfriend at the time, Mia Yim, and during Keith Lee's time away from the ring, he happily got married to Mia Yim. Tony Khan then announced that there would be a big debutante that would appear on AEW. Speculation was rife about who it could be, as the internet was going crazy speculating it was anyone from Wyndham Rotunda, formerly known as The Fiend Bray Wyatt, all the way to Ryback. But surprise, surprise.
Surprise, motherfucker.
Limitless Keith Lee walked out to a massive pop from the AEW crowd, and just as Keith Lee was walking down from the ramp, you could tell that he really felt at home. It felt like the original NXT version of Keith Lee that everybody fell in love with was back, and he looked happier than ever to be back doing what he loves, the way he wants to do it. The first thing that Keith Lee did was yeet Isaiah Cassidy into the air like a rag doll. You could just tell Keith Lee was truly in his element during this match. Watching him breathe in the atmosphere of the crowd and transmuting it into his performance was very satisfying to see as a viewer. Keith Lee picked up the win over Isaiah Cassidy, and credit to Isaiah Cassidy for selling Keith Lee's offense like $1 million. In his debut, Keith Lee showed that he's just as strong, athletic, and agile as he was before. And it's very exciting to see where Keith Lee will go in AEW, because he's a once-in-a-lifetime talent that is arguably the best big man in wrestling right now. Quite honestly, he should be the first ever African American AEW World Champion. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. But anyway, goodbye, you jobbers.